Carlton Cuse, an Emmy winner and the co-creator and executive producer of 5 Days at Memorial, an Apple TV Plus limited series of the deadly aftermath of Hurricane Katrina that's based on the book by Sherry Fink. Carlton, this is a project that had been discussed for a long time. I think it was going to be a movie, maybe another version of a TV show or something. What was your pitch to Sherry Fink, I guess, to get this over the proverbial hump and have it be on Apple as it is right now?
I'm not quite sure what sold Sherry, but I had to outwait first Scott Rudin and then Ryan Murphy before I was able to get the option on Sherry's book. I hope it was just my passion for it. I had read the book when it first came out, and I thought I knew about Hurricane Katrina. I'd read and followed the coverage, and then I read her book, and it was like, oh my God, there's a whole story here that I don't know. And it was that brilliant thing where she was telling a story about the 2,000 people trapped in this hospital and decisions that were made and events that happened. But it really was a microcosm for everything that happened during Katrina. And it was a great way to, I think, wrap your arms around this larger story about systemic failure and the largest national disaster that we've had in our country, where, we had an entire city that was 80% underwater and with no plan for how to help people. And so all those things really just stuck with me, and the book stuck with me, and I was just relentless in following it, and then finally was able to convince Sherry to give me the rights.
I'm glad she did, because it is a great show. And like you said, I was kind of felt foolish that I didn't know a lot of the stuff even that I was watching in the show. Like you said, I feel like living through Hurricane Katrina and reading a lot of this stuff, there's still like this show surprised me in ways that I was kind of, I guess, disappointed myself in, that I didn't know some of this stuff. It's pretty interesting.
I think a lot of people were focused on what was going on in the convention center or in the Superdome. And yet so there wasn't a lot of focus on it. Although I put a bunch of archival footage in there, which I think shows that it was covered, but somehow, I don't know, none of us remember it, or it's part of our kind of collective amnesia about this thing. But I love the idea. I love kind of cross-genre storytelling. And so the idea that this starts as a disaster thriller and then morphs into a medical ethics drama was the thing that was really attractive to me, that it starts out kind of as one thing, but then turns into something completely different. And as a result of the events that start the show off.
Yeah. So you mentioned like the systemic failure of government and all these things, and obviously watching it, I could not help but think of the coronavirus pandemic, and you made the show during it. And I felt like so much of it was resonating to me in the sense that we saw so many, I feel like, of the same errors again with the pandemic, and how the public maybe is expecting or relying on the government in ways that the government is not prepared to support. I don't know. And I guess, like, for you guys, did you, I would imagine maybe you noticed this kind of parallels, or did you during the production? And like, how did you think of what it was saying about not just Katrina, but like this fact that this is very repeatable, and we've seen it actually just repeat itself like in the last 2 years?
Oh, I mean, it was totally related. John Riley and I started writing this project in the fall of 19. And as we were and it was just the two of us. We did all the scripting and story breaking together. We didn't have a room. And as we moved into the spring of 2020, and here we were writing a story about people who were trapped in a hospital, trying to figure out who was going to get on a boat, who was going to get on a helicopter, who was going to get treatment and care. At the same time, that's in our current world, we were discussing who was going to get a ventilator, how are we going to get vaccinations. And then we made the show again during the pandemic, and we made the decision to go shoot a big chunk of the show in Canada because there was much less COVID up there, and we were doing big crowd scenes, a lot of people kind of on top of one another, and there were just far better COVID numbers up there. But when we were in Canada, it was completely locked down, so we only could spend time with each other. So there was this really strong resonance that we were making a story about one medical malady in the middle of another. And as John really said to me at one point, history rhymes. And I think that was very much a part of what was on our mind as we were trying to write the story and tell the story. And I hope, my greatest hope is that people will watch this and will find a way to not put healthcare professionals in the position of having to make the kinds of decisions that got made here in the future.
Yeah. Can you talk a little about working with John on this and like how your sensibilities kind of meshed and like how you pushed each other, I guess, in writing this?
I mean, John Ridley's amazing, and I feel so honored and lucky to have collaborated with him on it. And I love working in collaboration. That's kind of that's how I most like to work. And, going back to working with Damon Lindelof on Lost, or Carrie Aaron on Bates Motel, or Graham Rowland on Jack Ryan, Meredith Averill on Lock and Key. I mean, I like that. I like the ability to work with another showrunner, bounce ideas, work with another like-minded person to solve problems, and share the workload, responsibilities, and kind of litmus test the decision-making process. And when I got the rights to the book, my first impulse and the first person I wanted to go to was John Ridley. And I didn't know John Ridley. We both had deals at Disney, but I didn't know him. But I had been a huge fan of the show American Crime that he made, and it was really rigorous filmmaking with a great degree of intentionality and also tremendous humanity. And I felt like those were the exact qualities that this story needed. And we got together and we started spending time together, and we really saw eye to eye. And early on, John, while he was making his decision about doing this, had sent the original article that Sherry Fink wrote, for which he won the Pulitzer Prize, to his father, who was a retired physician. And his father he said, well, what do you think? And his dad's comment was, I just am lucky that I am in a position where I didn't have to make those decisions. And I think that was the thing that, in a way, unlocked the story for John and was a big key for us, which was to really put ourselves in the shoes of these healthcare professionals who, on sort of all sides of the equation, without passing judgment on them, and really try to feel every bit of that. Oh my God, I wouldn't want to have to make those decisions. And so that became a big operative principle for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that the show plays out like that. I mean, I'm thinking like towards the end, there's a scene where Dr. Poe, who's Vera Farmiga, and she finds out she's not going to be, the grand jury is not going to follow up on charges. And she has like kind of a breakdown in her foyer, I believe, right? Or she hears it on the phone. And I was just like, wow, it's such a great scene. And I was so invested in her, like it felt like almost a relief, right? And then the next scene, or maybe like one or two scenes later, you get one of the victims' spouses and an investigator talking, and I'm just like righteously angry then all over again. And I was just like, I've never felt such whiplash of like where my sympathies were lying and then just the empathy of it all. I found that it's just incredibly compelling. And it seemed very tricky because I think there's obviously an easy way where you could just villainize somebody here, or, like do all those different things. And the show never does that. And I guess how much effort did it take to not villainize any decision and like kind of like calibrate every performance and decision and edit even down to get that reaction that I probably and many others watch the show maybe also got.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things I said to John was we should really make the ending of this show feel like the spinning top at the end of Inception, where everybody can debate and discuss what it means. And we really wanted everyone to be able to do exactly that, to arrive at their own conclusion and decide, did you think that the decisions that were made were justifiable? Is it ever justifiable to basically, inject people with lethal doses of drugs? Is it possible for us even to pass judgment on these people from the comfort of hindsight, without really understanding the hellish conditions that they went through? So I think that was just a big operative principle. And so then from that came really trying to write each character as the hero of their story. And it really helps when you have Vera Farmiga and Cherry Jones advocating for their characters. And I think even having worked with Vera, I was fortunate to spend 5 years doing Bates Motel with her. And, she was always my first choice for this project, and she's just brilliant. But even I underestimated the degree to which she was able to make this character understandable and sympathetic and believable, and and just truly advocate for Dr. Poe and for her position. And it's been really fascinating to watch the audience reaction and to find that people are having responses to it that are all over the spectrum. There isn't a consensus about how to feel at the end of the show. And so I think John and I did our job.
Yeah, I would say so. What do you hope? Like, I mean, what's your ideal audience member's response after the show ends? Like, do you want them to go and like read more about this, or like I mean, maybe that's like I don't even know, but like, maybe you don't think in that term, but like, what do you hope that the audience would like respond to the show at the end?
Whether you think, Dr. Poe is or isn't guilty of crimes, my hope is that at the end of the show, you'll feel for healthcare professionals that are put in the untenable position of having to decide who gets care or who doesn't. And that in those moments, there is absolutely nothing but terrible choices. And so hopefully, as a society, we can be better prepared for the next time something like this happens. And it's just going to keep happening. I mean, with global warming, we see so many events like this. And so I guess if anything, I hope it will make people be more prepared and to also really understand the incredible difficulty healthcare professionals, the burden that they're under and the kind of baseline heroism of them in trying to deal with these really, really difficult circumstances that they find themselves in through no fault of their own.
It's a great show. 5 Days at Memorial on Apple TV+. You can watch it right now. Carlton Cuse, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.